members are present with Matt on the phone. And we've established a quorum, so we'll do pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next on the agenda is open forum, public input. There's no one here for. So we'll move on to 5, approve agenda, changes to agenda. There were none.
As is, yep.
So we just need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Schoenfelder, second by Turner to approve the agenda. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
All right, number 6 is conflict of interest, which I have none listed.
No.
All right, so 7 is discussion items. We'll discuss the proposed building project.
Okay, so we have Weber Construction, or excuse me, Weber. He'd like that. I got Fitz Construction, Mr. Jim and Jake Weber here to go through the bid opening that was held last Tuesday and the tabulations that they put together. And with that, I'll turn it over to them, and these are their documents, so they're going to walk us through that process. So.
Okay, thank you guys for letting us come and present tonight. The first sheet I'm going to go over, if you take the one that's got all the, it's this one here, it's got the individual bid tabs. And this is the list of all the bidders that turned in bids for the project. So we have the different bid packages. And on the first page, the first bid package was precast. That was furnish and install numbers. So we had 3 bidders in that category. Collins Precast, Pitts Design Build, and Ola Precast. The parent low bidder on that one was Ola Precast, and you can see the numbers there. So the base bid is on that one column. Alternate number 1 is for a payment and a performance bond. What that is, you will have to bond the project, but we have the individual bidders all post a bond, and then they took a deduct. When we get later into the presentation here, I'll explain a little bit, but we had them all give a deduct if we're not going to make a bond. So that's what that number is. So those are the 3 bidders in that category. On concrete, we had 1 bidder, Steve Barcher Concrete was the low and only bidder. He did not give a deduct on a payment performance bond. He did have a cashier's check on his bid security, stuff like that. The next bid package was masonry. We had 3 masons, Jim Williams Masonry out of Alec, S&S Masonry out of Wagner, and Lakeside Masonry. They're up north somewhere. Wabe, yep. Jim Williams was the apparent low bidder. On the general construction package, Pitts Design Build was the apparent low bidder. Same with on the steel, the metal package. Pitts Design Build was the low bidder. Bid package 6, aluminum storefronts, we had 2 bidders, both out of Mitchell, Interstate Glass and Independent Viking Glass. Interstate Glass was the low bidder. Roofing and wall metal or metal wall panels, we had 4 bidders. All these guys were out of Sioux Falls. J&P Roofing, MJ Dawson, ARS, and Guaranteed. ARS was the apparent low bidder. The second page.
Matt, can you hear okay?
I can hear you fine, not so much Jim.
Do you want to come sit up here maybe so he can hear you? Yeah, we'll have him move so you can hear better. Sorry, I didn't even think of that till just now.
That's okay.
Thank you.
On the second page, gypsum wall systems, so that's steel stud, drywall, things of that nature. Sands wall systems, they're out of Sioux Falls. They were the low and only bidder. Acoustical ceilings, Kenny Acoustical and FM Acoustical were the 2 bidders, with FM Acoustical being the apparent low bidder. On floor covering, we had 3 bidders, Innovative Systems, MCI, and CID. This one I got to do a little explaining on. As you see here, Innovative was the apparent low bidder. But as you can see by their numbers, they were considerably low. So after the bid, and we went back and we called a lot of these guys just to make sure they're comfortable with their bids and stuff. Innovative made a mistake on their bid. They got their quantities off on a gym floor. So he asked to rescind his bid or withdraw his bid. So once we get to the tabulation sheet or the spreadsheet, you'll see that we have the MCI in there plugged in for the apparent low bidder. The next bid package was painting. Nagel Painting out of Mitchell, and then Abe Painting. We want to point out on this one too, Abe Painting did not turn in bid security. They didn't turn in a cashier's check or a bid bond or anything. So when we get to the spreadsheet, you'll see that we have Nagel Painting in there at this time just because of that fact. So I wanted to point that out. On the athletic equipment, Combined Building Specialties out of Sioux Falls, they were the apparent low bidder. On the plumbing package, we had 2 bidders, Mitchell Plumbing and Cromer Plumbing, with Mitchell Plumbing being the apparent low bidder. On the heating and cooling side of things, we had Beatty Forsyth out of Sioux Falls, Howe is out of Sioux Falls, and then Paulson Sheet Metal is out of Mitchell. Paulson was the apparent low bidder in that package. On the electrical, we had 4 bidders, Muth Electric, Electric Construction, Fisher Electric, and M&T Electric, with Bill Fisher Electric being the apparent low bidder. And then on the last page is Earthwork and Site Utilities. We had 4 bidders on that one. Leonard Matei bid, Alliance Construction is out of Sioux Falls, Precision Grading is out of Mitchell, and Vanderpool is kind of out of Mitchell and Corsica area. And Vanderpool was the apparent low bidder in this package. So overall, I guess we were really pleased with the number of bidders that we saw. There are some packages that had low and only bidders, but that's not uncommon from what we've been seeing over the last couple of years. But we thought we really got good action, especially on the mechanical electrical side. And on the earthwork side, we were pleasantly surprised with the number of bidders and how everything came in. So now we want to go to this spreadsheet. So this one.
The colored one,
The
Matt.
colored one, yeah.
Good.
This one now shows all the apparent low bidders in the 16 different bid packages, with the exception that we are showing MCI on the flooring due to that bidding mistake, and we are also showing Nagel Painting because they had a complete bid with their bid bond, bid security, everything that was required. So you have, on this one too, there's 2 alternates up on top. So payment performance bond, we are showing or recommending at this time that you guys take that deduct, so you're saving $60,359.78. Pitts is going to bond the whole project, and we have those bond costs covered in our general conditions, but our bonding rate is better here, so it's a savings to you guys by doing it this rate. Sometimes if we have concerns with some of the subcontractors, maybe we've had trouble with them in the past, or we're concerned about their ability to handle a job, we might recommend that we keep a bond on the individual package, but in this case, we've worked with pretty much everybody on this list, so we got a pretty good feeling with everybody, so we're not too worried about that. The second alternate that we're showing you're accepting at this time is to eliminate the flooring in the weight room. And what happened there is Arking specified some flooring for the weight room, and I think it was a 6 mil or an 8 mil flooring in there. I know the school district has looked at maybe doing some stuff a little bit different than that, adding some turf, maybe doing a different thickness in some parts of the areas. So they wanted us to break this part out. So this would be eliminating all of the floor covering in the weight room, and this would allow you guys to take that savings and then go do something by on your own, or get exactly what you want without having to decide right now, because there wasn't time before the bid for you guys to go through and decide everything and get all that stuff noted in the plans. So that's how we handle that one. So on this spreadsheet, we're showing that you're accepting both of those alternates. So the total of the construction comes over to the bids, $5,139,653.22. Now we have to add in things like general conditions. That's $497,992, and excise tax on everything. General conditions are things in the project such as the bond, builder's risk insurance, porta pots, the forklift and skid loader for moving stuff around, the job superintendent, a variety of things like that, kind of soft costs that go into every project. So that's what those costs are.
Is that an estimate, Jim?
That's a firm number.
That's not an
Okay.
estimate.
Yeah, that's not an estimate, that's a firm number now, yeah. Now that the plans are done and stuff, that's what costs are gonna be. Other things would be in there, but special inspections like testing, concrete testing, soils density testing, weld inspections, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then we have our construction management fee that we show, and there again, we have to pay excise tax on not only on the construction, but on our CM fee. At this time, we're showing a $350,000 contingency, and the contingency fund is for things that come up during the project. Maybe there is a mistake on the plans, or if you guys want to add something or make some changes. At the end of the day, that's your guys' money. before we spend any of it, we get your approval, you have to sign off on it. One thing that we do want to take out of here, I want to point out, temporary heating and sheltering. We do not have that covered in general conditions. What we like to do there is do that on a time and material basis. So that would be like heater expense, propane or natural gas, poly, any labor for doing shelterings. We seem to have the best luck, or the owners like it when we do it on a time and material basis, because every winter is different. You know, if we get a mild winter, those expenses might not be that much. If we get a tough one, they're gonna be there. But we keep you guys updated on a monthly basis on where those costs are, and then we would take that out of the contingency fund. If we had to give you a ballpark number, I would say probably $70,000 to $75,000 if we had to give you what it might cost, or, you know, depending how things go. But like I say, at the end of the project, whatever we don't spend on that contingency gets credited back to you guys. And I don't see us using $350,000 of contingency unless you guys want to pay for stuff out of there. If we get a ways down the project where you guys want to put your flooring in there or some athletic equipment or things of that nature, you know, you sure can. We always kind of, not caution, but wait until we get closer to the end where we know we got money left, instead of some people maybe want to spend it right away. It's just like, let's wait a little bit and get halfway through the project or a little bit more, so we got a better understanding. Another thing just to maybe point out too, in our general construction package, right now they weren't sure what you guys wanted for signage on the exterior of the building, so it's called out that we have a $30,000 allowance in there. For that assigned. So you might end up spending more depending what you want to do, or you might not spend as much, but there is an allowance in there to cover that kind of stuff. So overall, with the contingency, with all of our fees, $6,366,853.76. We do not have architecture fees included in this, but you guys kind of know what those costs are. I'm sure Craig and Pat have that number for you. And then the very last handout that we gave you was just a copy of the construction schedule. We put this out with our bid documents. We always like to do this when we're the construction manager or do negotiated work, so the contractors kind of know what our plan is. Now, this isn't the gospel. This is just a good game plan. This is what we're hoping for if things go well. We don't have big material delays or anything like that. This is kind of when we're hoping to be done, but we're showing a May start with August of 24 completion date. So.
What was the architecture, what was the amount?
So Craig and I did some work on the architect fees, and that is 6% of the total cost of the project. We're probably still, and they're going to be, Jim could probably explain it better than I do, but they're going to be here through the whole process, even though I would say the greater portion of their work and the design process, that's what they do, is probably done, but they support us through this whole process, just like Pitts Construction does too at every turn of the project. So they'll come in and do walkthroughs and inspections, they'll mediate any meetings or issues that we have, along with Pitts Construction as well. So
6% of this.
yeah, but we've already paid them a pretty good portion. We're over, you know, we're probably put closer to $150,000 to them. So we probably owe them, you know, somewhere between $2 and $2.25 yet.
Okay. I just curious.
$225,000. So Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that what we kind of sat down?
I think so, but we didn't know for sure. I was just asking Jake. And Jim, maybe you know better. Is it 6%? Does that include the contingency?
No, this is contingency that we just want you guys to carry for the project.
So that
the
wouldn't
art
be part
fees,
of
nope,
the
yep, you have to add your art
okay.
fees to the bottom number, the 6.3.
Yep.
With the contingency in it.
Well, that might be something you gotta check with Arc Inc. I don't know if they'll charge you on a contingency because you don't know what you're gonna spend. You know, I mean, if you knew you were gonna spend it all, then they would. But let's just say you only spend $100, $1,000 out of there. You know,
So it'll
your
be-
contract amount.
At that time will be the final bill.
Yeah,
Based on whatever we end up spending on. So the most it could be, then,
Is it 6% is their fees?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if with 6% of 6,366, that's a most. 'Cause that has the 350,000 contingency in it, so.
that's not right. Try to use the calculator on here.
You're at what, 363,000.
Yeah.
381,000 at the max.
So
And we've already spent some of that.
if we paid or like say we paid 150, will we go back later and that come out of this money that we're looking to take, or does that come out of our funds that we're just gonna, I don't know if I'm explaining. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it coming out of our general fund and we're just paying it out of there?
Nothing's coming out of the general fund.
Well, you said we already paid some of it, or
Out
whatever.
of the capital outlay.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, so we already paid some of it, so does that money go back out of the money that we borrow, that we're taking
Well, then the
out?
proceeds, whatever we don't spend on those proceeds that you put into your project fund,
Yeah,
at the end when we talk to financing, will just go into the capital outlay to
okay,
cover those.
that's, okay.
I mean, we don't have to pay that back, because you borrowed that much
Money.
to begin
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's what
okay.
your proceeds were. So you would use some of that proceeds to cover what you already spent.
Okay,
Well, we've already spent in the ARC fees.
okay,
So essentially add another 250,000 to 6,366,000. And then that's gonna be your real and true number of the total cost of the project. From design to, here's the keys. I didn't do the math.
So I had a couple questions. So, in talking to some of the bids here, what did they think about equipment in general as far as coming on time?
Probably the biggest things that we've seen lately that we're having lead times with are electrical switchgear. And I don't think that's gonna be an issue here because of what you guys already have. Rooftop units, sometimes we've had issues there, especially if they're hydronic units.
These are.
Yeah, some of those I know, like over in Corsica, so they're about close to a year.
52 weeks on the dot.
Yeah, so certain, I mean, if
They are getting better.
Yeah, they are getting better though. Precast is, precast, the guys are getting busy. So I think Ola actually could maybe fit our schedule better than the other guys. I know some guys are saying now if we issued POs to them and stuff, it could be November, December timeframes before we're seeing precast, just with the amount of work out there. But some of the other items are getting a little bit better and, the pricing is maybe stabilized more on the material side of things. But they're still, like I said, switchgear and rooftop units are probably the two that I've been hearing most about lately.
Is this rooftop unit that we got installed on those particular 3 facilities, are they hydronic like you said?
I believe they are.
Jake, yeah?
Yep.
Same
They're a
thing.
smaller unit compared to what, for instance, over in Stickney, we had one unit for the whole project itself, so it was an oversized one, where these are a lot smaller because they're condensing just one smaller area.
Right.
So the lead times should not be as long, and I could do some checking on what a typical, out of these sizes that were spec'd out, what they are, but these should only be maybe 30 to 35 week lead times after kind of talking to a couple of HVAC guys.
Sure.
I know we did a wrestling room over in Freeman too, when we had an issue there, we had to temp something in, because the unit wasn't coming, so.
So these guys, knowing that they potentially, if we approve everything tonight, do you go back and check with them, make sure they got stuff ordered?
Yeah, what we want to do is get purchase orders issued, like certain trades, everybody would have to honor their bid for 30 days. So we got time there, but I know certain, like some of our steel bids, they kind of say right on our bids that we turned in 7 to 10 days. So I mean, the sooner we can get an answer and get guys going, we'll start issuing contracts and purchase orders and probably call key guys just to give them a heads up saying, hey, it's going to be coming in the mail so they can save a spot for the project, plus get their purchase orders and getting going on long lead times.
So I don't think I've missed a board meeting asking the question about the building here, but I continually have a concern about soil. And you're really comfortable?
Yeah, I think so, what they got in there too, they did the soils reports, and if we find something on the dirt work too, John, I think if you look, they got their classified, if you see on unit price 1 and unit price 2, so if we do run into soils issues, they have it spelled out what they will charge to take out, you know what I mean, some bad soils and bring in good, because sometimes too, the
That's what
soil
happened
was.
out at the track.
Yeah, and that's when we did the track project, if I remember right, we gave you guys 3 options. The first option, was probably the the most risk, and the option that you guys chose was the best, going down 3 feet.
Right.
But the soils engineer and everybody's looked at this, so they've kind of done their homework. But if we do run into soils, that's part of that testing and special inspections. We'll get geotech out here once they start digging a hole, and if they see something they don't like or there's concerns, then we address it at that time, and that's kind of what that contingency is for too, in case we would run into a bad spot or whatever it might be.
So they haven't done any soil probes yet?
Yeah, they've done the soils borings.
Yeah.
That's what this is all based off of, yeah.
Okay.
So before the structural engineer and Architectural Incorporated could finish their drawings, they needed that soils boring so they could size their footings and foundations accordingly.
Okay, all right.
I have the geotech report, certainly willing to share that. I read through that. I talked to Steve about what was in the geotech report, because he had it too. I don't remember if I shared it with you, Jim, or not.
I think we got a copy.
We talked
Yeah,
about it
it's
at one of the
We-
meetings.
Yeah, we did.
I'm pretty
It was a
sure we
brief
did.
conversation. I think I
Yeah.
just elaborated on the fact that, what I read in there, and the skill, for lack of better terms, as to how to remove the dirt,
Yep.
and not disturbing particular areas type of deal. And I'm reading through that, and I'm like, it made it maybe sound like we're, built on a sandcastle type of deal. But I emailed the guy that was, I can't remember his name, who sent me the report. It just said, hey, what you see here, what's in the report, is this, or do you got any major? He goes, we see this all the time. I mean, based on the soil materials. And I think they took 6 or 9 bores, I can't remember for sure. So in the spots that he had out there was very representative of. Now, the only thing he didn't get to was underneath the concrete. No, I don't think he dug, but all the other places that he did take soil samples, so. But it's a great question, because I had the same question, and I'm like, it made it sound like we're walking on eggshells, but.
Yeah, okay.
The other part of that, I think we talked about too, is it's no different than the footprint that you're already living in. I mean, those same concerns had to be when they built this place, had to be when they built the first, the high school addition and the armory, I suspect, and the place is still standing, I guess. Have you had ever any structural real issues where you got into, grave conflict with somebody that this doesn't add up?
Yeah. I just, maybe my memory is really good about the Dakota Plains when we built that. We actually had to move the elevator site
Oh,
because the borings didn't turn out to be really what they thought they were.
yeah. And we've done that too before on projects. When Watertown, the big recreational center, we value engineered it out. We advised them to move the building over like 100 feet or so,
Right.
because the borings were that much different. They saved probably like $500,000 or $1 million by moving the building over from the original site or original location, just because of soil quality.
Yep.
But I wouldn't say it's so much a concern around here. We do our homework and we're used to it. But when like Chamberlain, the Chamberlain School or St. Joe Indian School, we're working out there, a lot of times they have bad soil where you got to do geopiers or ram the aggregate piers and all that kind of stuff, and it gets really expensive
Because of the river.
because of the river and the soils conditions and all that kind of stuff.
We had to do a lot of pilings out there.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
What else, guys? Based on the
So with the
calculations?
bid being lower than what we were kind of thinking, do you think a lot of it was, number one, being available for the project, and number two, equipment costs maybe not quite as high?
Yeah, kind of a combination thing. We made a lot of phone calls on your guys' behalf. We send a lot of emails out, made a lot of phone calls. I think the location helps. It's close enough to Sioux Falls where guys come and work. You still have the Mitchell contractors, but you use like Bill Fisher Electric, for example. Scotland's close to Parkston. If this would have been maybe in Mitchell or further away, he might have not bid. But it's just kind of the right size for him that he can handle a project like that. A couple of things that helped, I think, your mechanical, electrical. I think Paulson and Mitchell Plumbing are both doing work down at the school already. So I think that they might have maybe got a little bit more aggressive since they were already working here, that they wanted to do, another project because they're going to be on site working anyway. Some of the precast, we're happy there, but, there was pretty good differences in the precast numbers. Ola was low, they're close, they're out by Lake Andes, Platte area and stuff, so distance-wise, they're close, and they do a good job. Masonry, we were pleasantly surprised. I was worried that we might only be getting one masonry bid and to get three. And, Jim Williams got aggressive on it. So kind of a combination of things, I think, so. But
Definitely a benefactor.
yeah, it's been a while since we actually probably, came in under budget, to be honest. Totally honest with you, we're just not seeing it. So I think some of the materials maybe are backing off a little bit, but, so it was nice to see, because it's been, if we hit budgets, most of the time we're doing a cartwheel after we open bids.
What else, guys?
Matt, do you have any questions?
No, the only question I can think of you touched on, Craig, to clarify, you don't think we'll need to reimburse the capital outlay for what we've already taken out of there?
Well, we wouldn't reimburse this, just whatever's left in the proceeds that you decide to do would just be deposited into, as we talked to Jerry about that right before this meeting, actually, we called him. We go, where did the proceeds get deposited, or the, what did he call it, not proceeds, though, he called it something. The bid, he didn't call it the par amount, the whatever the total net project or project.
Yeah, essentially the dollar amount in which you guys end up deciding as to the amount in which you want to sell capital outlay certificates, if you do indeed want to do that. So that gets put into a line item within your capital outlay that's designated for the project. You don't want to just dump it into capital outlay, and Craig knows those numbers way better than I do, only for the standpoint you want those dollars to be totally associated and only associated with the building project. So the amount of dollars that we've already expended out of our capital outlay, we did have that budgeted in your budget for this year. So the necessity to maybe this notion of refunding it or putting back that money, there's really no need to do that, because you budgeted for the process up to this point.
We paid
That's what I
$110,000.
was trying to say.
We may be a little high, but you have, some reserve dollars within your budget too, and there may be other components in the capital outlay budget that when it all washes out, you're still within the budget that you set, so I think, Matt, hopefully that answers your question, that we don't need to, backfill, so to speak, if that's the right term, because we've already expended money in our capital outlay.
Reimburse was the word you used.
Yeah.
That helped, that made more sense to me.
Right.
That's what I was asking.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. I just want to make sure I know what I'm working with here.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So we can probably have the situation ready for next school year.
What's that?
The
Pretty close to being
8/15.
done.
Yeah.
The 24, August the 24th, yes, absolutely. It's, the building schedule obviously is, it is what it is, and I think there's components that are tight, and it all depends on Mother Nature. The greatest impact on all of that stuff, but with a scheduled completion date of August 15th of 2024, you're a year away from, having it, here's turning over the keys, if you make that decision, I guess, moving forward here. So, Craig, we would like to at least give you a little bit more information up on the TV here, and this is going to be a little bit reflection back onto when we first did this back in September or October, Craig?
I think it was October.
I don't recall, but there's some things here we want to at least point out to anybody watching online, and you guys as school board members. And Matt, I know you can't see the document, but and that's my apologies, but this is nothing more than that PowerPoint that we had went over back in September. So, and nothing really changed on it except for the numbers, I guess, but that are reflected now within the project. So I think you'll get the gist of it, Matt, as you listen and we go through it slide by slide here. So if you got questions, please interject. We'll respond. So,
Well, the first slide I have up here is what Pitts brought to us with the preliminary estimate on 9/8 of 2022, and that total at that time with the ARC fees in there, and the contingency, and all the other costs at that point, at that time of the year, was $7,367,525. And right now, we're looking at about 6.74, if you add the total 381 that we've already spent as well. So almost $1 million under, or 750,000 under. Okay. And then this is just kind of going back over the capital outlay fund that we currently are operating under. First thing we have is that we got to remember our $275,000 general fund transfer that we budget each year. Okay. And then the second thing was the QZAP bonds, which are done in 2024. So 1 year, that year after this is completed, we will no longer have that $132,000 payment. And then currently, we're operating about $450,000 for all of our other capital outlay expenditures, based on the $850,000 request that you have done the last 2 to 3 years. Okay. Current tax information, there's that $850,000 that I talked about, but that, based on the pay 22 taxable valuation of $509 million, that equated to just under 1.67 or $1.67 per thousand of the taxable valuation. Remember, the pay 23 tax valuation went up to $556 million, which we talked about earlier when we did the financing talks of that increased the amount that you could do your capital outlay certificates to of up to 8.3, which this is well under that now. But just a reminder, we're going to talk dollar, not levy dollar amounts of $1.67, because of the tax valuation fluctuates each year. So your valuation is going to fluctuate accordingly. Compare our taxes to the other districts. I did get back in September, these were taxes payable of 2021. So now they are taxes payable of 2022. The new information is out there. We did go below Platte Geddes, so Platte Geddes must have had some sort of savings where they decreased something somewhere. I didn't pay attention to exactly what, but those were the first general fund levies, the 1.409, 3.153, 6.525, that's all set by the state. We don't have any control over those. And these are the 10 closest schools to our size in enrollment. And of those, Platte Geddes is the only surrounding one that was really lower than us. I mean, the rest of them, Bonham is higher. All the other ones, our school size, are higher. Groton's a little bit bigger district. As far as number of students, they were lower, and Dual was lower. Okay, this is current. All right, so if you were to add stuff to it, we talked about earlier, 60 to 70 cents. If you added that to it, we wouldn't move. We would still be 14.925. We're still in the same spot compared to other school districts our size. Okay. Now, when you compare the ones to the surrounding districts, we were the second lowest. Corsica Stickney is lower. I don't know if their project is all included in this yet or not. Maybe, maybe not. This is kind of where we were before, and this is where we're still at. Second lowest, Corsica Stickney only being lower by 0.3. But if you were to add 0.7 to this, we would still be right there with Hanson. Still in the same spot, second lowest taxes in the area. And all those Wagners and down belows, those have an opt-out, so that's why when you look at their general ag levy and cap owners occupied and other, those are different amounts because of the opt-out. They get added to those general fund
Is Freeman,
totals.
do they have a bond there because they just did something, or what? Why is that there?
I have no idea, have a
What
bond or
does that mean?
something.
Oh, Okay.
Probably for their school.
Their
They just built
elementary-
something, didn't
The
they?
elementary that they built here less than 10 years ago, they added on to their,
We just did a small addition, but that was just a wrestling
I
rink.
was
Yeah,
gonna
no,
say,
this is
they
pretty
just did
small.
something again.
they built a huge elementary down there.
Okay.
I've been in it, so I suspect that's what that bond is
Oh,
for.
okay.
Yep.
So, any questions on that? Just to give you the updated numbers on those. Remember, this does not include any increase. This is what it currently is at, that 14.225. Okay, so what would it look like if we were to do this? I changed the number to 0.7. When you look at our payment schedules, it's a little bit more than the 510 was originally. It's at 532. I think the original PowerPoint had 1,251,000, I think. This one, if you just added 70 cents, this is what your revenue would be, based on the new valuation. 1,316,746. So you got your capital outlay transfers in there, 275. So it increases our capital outlay expenditures a little bit than what we were operating on currently at the 466. It has 509 there if you were to do this the full 70 cents. Principal and interest amount at the biggest, it was 532,000 for a year.
That's about our average price, the payment on the selling of the certificates is going, and that was at 6.5, correct?
Yes, that was at 6.5 million.
6.5 million. Your average, just to cover the cost of the bond, is the 532,000. That's the average price. And then the other capital outlay expenditures, the 509,000 as compared to the 446,000.
Yep.
And then added it all up, plus your 275,000, which, by the way, we do not currently use all $275,000 of that line item. It's there if we need it to transfer it into the general fund, but right now we don't use all of it. So when you add it all up, that's where you're gonna put a tax request in September, if you do this, and asking for 1,316,000 in your capital outlay fund.
So that equivalent, and if you want to talk levies, is $2.37 or 2.368 per thousand.
You can do it either way,
Yeah.
either flat amount or what's the levy to garner that, so.
Now, we talked before about how this affects the landowner, homeowner, business owner. So a 70-cent increase on a levy, in the levy on a quarter of land. I did those three scenarios again for the land, homeowner, and business owner. So the landowner, I called the county again. The average taxable value per acre in Hutchinson County went up $54 this year. So it was $1,804, now it's $1,858. So that's why I have that 1,800 taxable value per acre highlighted, because that's kind of the average in Hutchinson County. So for 160 acres, it's a $201.60 increase on on what an average quarter of land would be. And I think the number before was 170 something. I can't remember exactly. At 60 cents.
And that's the other comparative. When we showed this back in September, the estimation was an increase of 60 cents in the capital outlay. And this is being proposed at 70.
Homeowner, so 200, I did all the different 100 all the way up to $500,000, but 250, I know when we did this at 60 cents was $150 per year. Now at 250,000 is $175, so $25 more. That is what that dime costs you on a 250,000. Would cost the taxpayer. Business owner same, because they're all,
Dollar per dollar.
it's dollar per dollar for all three of them, so it's taxable valuation. Any questions on that?
We were using a 30-year amortization, right?
20,
20?
because capital outlay certificates can only go 20 years.
Okay.
Callable after 10. So now, we can bring up that sheet that Jerry sent out. How comes this is not going, Tony? Probably gotta end my PowerPoint.
Yeah, you probably gotta get out of there.
Okay, so we did 3 scenarios for, or DA Davison did 3 scenarios for us. Because at the time we had him run the numbers, we didn't really know what the price was gonna be. So we went 6.5, 7, and 7.5. Well, I think the top 2, unless you guys want to, we don't feel we maybe need to do based on these numbers. So the lowest one, selling certificates at 6.5 million. The proceeds are a little over 600,000. So, you know, your net is going to be $7,100,000 that you're going to generate by selling that 6.5 million, because of what the market's doing right now. Proceeds went up compared to back in October when he did this at 7 million, and our proceeds actually were about the actual, not proceed, but
Your premium.
project fund deposit was within like $25,000 difference by selling 7 million back then at the interest rate to what it would be 6.5 million right now. I think it was just over 7 million you'd had in your project fund deposit. And right now, if we were to do 6.5 million par certificates, your project fund would show a deposit of $6,967,967, which is more than the amount that the bid came in with the architectural costs included by a little over almost $220,000 more. And remember, the contingency is another 350 if you don't, maybe there's another 200,000 there that we might not spend. So the proceeds that would end up after the whole project's said and done with this scenario might be $300,000 to $400,000 into the capital outlay fund to do some of the other things that were not included that we knew about in the beginning, like the wall mats around the wall for the wrestling room, a scoreboard in the facility in the new gym area, the flooring in the weight room,
Security cameras.
security cameras.
I think what else was in
There was one other thing. Oh, the equipment in the weight room.
Oh, yeah.
That was a question I
Yep.
had.
So there's possibly some money there, along with the money we have in the bank to do some of those.
The line that was athletic equipment, what is that? I'm just-
Basketball hoops.
Backstops. And
Golf netting.
Okay, I was curious just what that
Long
all
jump pit.
Baseball
included.
balls, long jump.
Okay.
pit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't include any of the exercise equipment?
Would it include the markings of the floor, or is that all flooring?
I'll be on the floor covering.
That's flooring guy does that, I didn't know.
How about like the bleachers that we're proposing? That-
Portable bleachers was another thing.
That's not
That's
in the
not-
That's not
project.
in, okay.
Not in the project.
Hence the reason why we're suggesting the 6.5 million to give us almost a $7 million proceed. Or net deposit in the project fund. To have the money to do those things and still
Not have to take out of.
not have to take out of our fund that we have currently to maybe do the other projects on the 5-year capital outlay plan that we had, along with we're not having to borrow more for it either. I mean, when you looked at the old 7 million 3, that 7 million was not even covering that at the time. And now we're doing 6.5, and we're doing all of that and being able to
Your certificates will be 6.5.
furnish it.
All of your rates are based on 6.5. All your payments are based on the 6.5 million. But because of the premium and what the market is doing right now and the rates that you're gonna get are favorable, you're gonna end up with potentially almost 7 million in your project fund. And that essentially, I don't know, probably inappropriate terms or not the right terms, but, you know, because of the rates being favorable, it's essentially, here's another 500,000. You know, use as you see fit, based on the market. So, but it's still based on 6.5 million.
And the rate, when you look at this schedule that DA Davidson sent to us, the rate does say 5% as an interest rate. But your yield, because they're buying them at a premium, the yield is what you're actually paying.
Yeah.
Okay? And when you scroll down to page, I think it's 4 of this, or 3 or 4, there is an average arbitrary yield, arbitrage yield there of 3.623. That's kind of your true cost.
And the other component of this
Of
is
borrowing.
when the money is deposited into that account, you still have the ability to invest those dollars. It doesn't just have to sit there. So you could potentially go out and make more money on that,
Until it gets spent.
on that par amount. So you have the ability to generate, it's not gonna be, you know, a windfall, but you still have more money to tap into potentially.
So if we say yes to them, how soon does the proceeds hit our bank account?
He talked about, you know, the quickest it could be is 4 weeks. With the tax season, they sometimes see rates. Rates right now are favorable because of the bank. We just got on the phone with Jerry today, so talking about that bank thing. He said the rates are still pretty favorable even though it's tax season. So a lot of times with the securities, they see right after tax season they'll go down a little bit again. So they're going to watch that closely if we proceed. It could be 4 weeks if they think that's the best deal, or sometime in May.
He said if things went a little haywire here, started climbing, he said you have the ability to wait to see if the market corrects itself after the tax season. He said it
Tax
typically,
day.
or tax, then it typically does, it readjusts. He said, so maybe you don't sell until 1st of May, only to get that better rate that you're looking for. But that's gonna be a day-to-day kind of concept, I guess. And that, you know, they live in that world and I don't. I mean, that's what he said to us.
But the soonest would be is 4 weeks, John.
Yeah, that you could get it done. 4 to 6 is what he said.
And the 6th would put us in the middle of May.
Well, I kind of like that 3.6 based on rates. I
Mhm.
mean, if we waited, I mean, would it improve a tenth? I mean,
Yeah, he didn't give us any, what it could.
Yeah.
I get involved in that with my ownership in the bank. I get involved with that. That's an interesting marketplace. Now,
That was 6.5, Craig.
Yes.
Is there a necessity to go through the 7 and the 7.5 on your guys' behalf? I mean, you know, full disclosure, transparent, if you want to see the numbers, we have them, but if you don't,
We just think that the 6.5 will cover everything, like I said, the additional equipment, the
It'll be plenty. Craig? Yeah?
For the stuff that we just talked about, didn't have security cameras in there. I don't know how much those would be. We never talked about security cameras, Pat, did we?
I just remember on that one exclusion, you know, when you pulled that one up from back in September, and usually we don't, we'll rough in for security cameras, we'll run the power and the data and electrical, but then, you know, since you guys already have
Yeah.
your security systems, you guys just coordinate
It's just
that.
more or less just the cameras.
Yeah, just your cost, your cameras and any, you know,
Not very
any
much.
equipment you got,
Okay.
yeah.
So I mean, we figure it's about 40,000 for the flooring. Is what we, right, Mr. Fisher, if I remember right, 41? If you wanted to do the, you know, cat's meow of the equipment in there, we figured it was about 113. Was the quote we received. Now, like I said, that's a lot.
and we think we have a 500,000 cushion.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's only 150.
But then you got bleachers. Those bleachers were, depending on how many you wanted to get, what kind you wanted to get, because there was 2 styles. There's just the aluminum, or there was ones that looked very, very similar to our blue bleachers that we have that tip up and roll and hide away. Those were like, if I remember right, $4,400 a section, depending on how many sections you wanted to do. Different stuff like that. I mean, but that's 4,400. That's quite a few of them sections yet to get there. And then the wall mat, we're getting a quote on that, but we didn't have that from Chad yet to get that. But we knew those weren't included in there. To be honest with you, the ones that we will have, if you do this, will be better. The ones we have right now are only 4 foot high, and these are 6 foot high, and that's kind of the standard is 6 foot high, because you think about a kid hitting there. How many kids are only 4 foot tall in the wrestling room?
6
So
foot
they're
linear,
heads.
full 3 sides, you wouldn't put it on the south side because that's where
Yeah.
the cement is at. So that room, remember, there's the mats, and then you have a 6 foot cushion here. You know, so you'd not, no necessity to put it on that south wall. So my gut guess on that is if that whole project cost you more than, 40 grand, I would be shocked to outline that room.
And a scoreboard is minimal, because you wouldn't put a high-tech
Then we're just putting,
scoreboard in there. I mean, you watch some of those middle school gyms just have a little scoreboard that's probably the size of that whiteboard over there, It's not gonna have all the bells and whistles, so that, 5,000 maybe, to 5 to 10.
Is there anything in any of these bids for landscaping when the work is all done?
Yeah, I think we do. There was a little bit of seating
A little
in.
bit of seating, and then anywhere that landscape rock is disturbed, we threw in additional money for that, just because not knowing off the drawings where that outdoor classroom area was. The concrete doesn't go all the way up to the building behind, so we figured a little bit in and around there, depending on what was kind of disturbed. We threw in landscape rock there.
Okay.
No plantings or trees or anything like that. Pretty much just seeding, dirt work, and a little bit of rock.
Sure, just to clean it up, make it look good.
Yeah, it sounds like we'd have plenty left over even with those projects added. So I don't need to see further unless you guys want to.
don't. Matt, are you okay? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm with you.
Okay. So I don't know, essentially what more information we can share for you. The question I think that is before you as a school board tonight would have to be a motion with respect to Pitt's construction as to whether you would like to accept all of these low bids to move forward with the project. And the main reason of doing that tonight, you can wait, all bids are good for 30 days, but I think the timeline and necessity in order to lock these people, these vendors down, get them the purchase orders, sign the contracts with them. Time is of the essence right now, I believe, in order to meet the timeline that has been proposed at this stage of the game. I think you can speak to it better. You and I visited about it. The potential fear, though, of maybe waiting a little bit longer. You have some of these guys who've bid multiple projects and then, maybe getting cold feet and they maybe walk away. Is that an accurate term?
Yeah, because there's a lot of work bidding right now, so the guys are trying to line up work for this year. So if they know they're gonna do this project, they might not bid something else. Or if there's a doubt in their mind that they're not sure if it's gonna go or not, they might be out bidding because they don't wanna put all their eggs in a basket and then 20 days from now, you guys decide not to go forward with it and they weren't out chasing other work. So it's usually,
And that just may affect the timeline a little bit.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the long run.
yeah, so
Even if we were to go forward, it could still affect the timeline a little bit.
I mean, quite honestly, it's probably best case scenario, like it's under what we thought it would be, and it sounds like everything's in place, so, I'm comfortable with where things are at, but I suppose we have to take a vote, right?
We need a motion.
To move and then take a vote?
Vote on.
Yeah. So moved, I'll move, I got it.
I'll second it.
Moved by Nebo and seconded by Prohl to accept the bids that was presented to you by Pitt's Construction. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
There you go.
spreadsheet, compare low bidders based on that spreadsheet.
Okay,
In the motion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
So every once in a while, some boards go through and they do it on every single package, but
Right.
I don't see the need to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's so Craig and I talked about that earlier.
Yeah, we were
The
thinking,
necessity
do I
to
have to
put in
type
our
them all in?
minutes,
Yeah.
that we should put them all.
No, I would think I would just maybe reference the parent low bidders on a spreadsheet dated, 3/14/23 with a dollar amount, and you can use this as an attachment, because then it's got everything in there. Because there are two bidders that weren't a parent low bidder, but we explained why. One withdrew his bid and one didn't have bid security.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. I guess for clarification, accepting the low bids per the spreadsheet. The second question is moving forward with DA Davidson and asking them to put together paperwork on 6.5 million. Clarification, we asked Jerry
Yep,
about that.
we don't
You
need
already had your resolution back in October of could sell up to the 7.757 million. Once you've done that, you've done your diligence on that, we just need to tell him the amount and then he'll start putting the paperwork together. So if 6.5 is what I heard everybody agreeable to, that's what we presented, then we'll tell him that amount.
So is that 6.5, that's the 70 cents increase?
Yes. Yep.
And, in a year, maybe it's not. I mean, it might be 67 cents. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, you can change.
yes.
So, point of clarification, that's a great question, is just because and the initial ask on this in order to meet that payment is 70 cents applied equally in the owner and the ag and then the commercial aspect of things, doesn't mean that that's going to be 70 cents for the duration of the 20 years of the certificates because of your valuations going up and down, and I suspect that the Parkston School District valuations are going to continue to go. So the offset on that is you can ask for less and still garner the amount of money that you need based on the valuation increasing in order to make your payment. So I want it to be clear that because it's 70 cents now does not mean that it's going to be 70 cents from this point forward. In
It
that
can be
respect.
up to 70. but
Yeah.
not-
Exactly.
And it might not be 70 cents in September when we go and build, when we get the budget all done and
We maybe even ask for less than that.
Just goes by what you need.
yes.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And in 2 years from now, you're losing a $132,000 payment.
That's huge.
So it'll go down again, probably.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you explained that, because I guess I didn't.
So right now, between around that 1.3 million is probably what we would ask for. And that equivalents to close to, the max, the 70 cents would give you 1,316,000. Well, if you did 1,300,000, even it's like 6.67 or 6.8, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
At some point too, you could possibly refinance if interest rates came down in a few years
Yep.
and stuff like that, because I know Jerry and those guys do a lot of refinancing for the districts across the state.
We did that with our bond once or twice, if I remember right,
Mhm.
and then to be able to pay it off early.
So if this sells, like, say, 4 weeks, when's our first payment? A year? Or?
Yeah.
What was it? It was on that sheet.
September of it's not September, June. I want to say June of 2024.
I think it was the summer.
Of 200 and some thousand, 245,000 on June 30th of 2024.
And then by that time, our other payment will be gone.
No,
Not
The
quite.
next
You'd
one.
you'd have one.
one more year.
One more year.
Yeah, pretty close though.
Okay.
Awesome.
And that 245 is only the half,
Right.
because it's only the first.
Thanks for explaining it all to us.
Oh, you are very welcome.
What do? You gotta give with me as far as contracts and all that?
We'll work on an addendum to the contract now that we got final numbers and stuff like that, so we'll go back and we'll start working on stuff this week, next week, and just follow up with you guys what we need, so. But then we'll just be staying in touch and stuff then.
Okay. If there isn't anything else, you can adjourn. We do not have anything. I put executive
we
session
don't
on there,
have-
but
okay.
we do not have anything at this
Okay.
stage of the game, so.
I'd just like to add a little bit here. and maybe this is a little bit outside of the box, but, you know, we were talking last meeting about gymnastics, and we were talking about other sports coming on potentially down the road, and we were concerned about funding. And we were talking also capital outlay about a building potentially. And so it doesn't bother me too much to have some extra dollars here, because I think ultimately we got to keep that in mind if we want to. It's all about education here, and ultimately if we don't have the funding in place, I mean, it's going to take some extra money, not knowing what enrollment's going to be, and so this might help a little bit.
Yeah.
To get
sure.
to kind of where we need to be, because it takes real money, and we've been deficit spending a little bit, and so.
I think you guys can be commended for your patience. You know, there was 8 months ago, you know, it seemed like maybe a sense of urgency on my part, you know, and if that came across, it probably was part of that, but having lived the project, I've lived through this process now. You guys made some good, sound decisions as a school board, and to hold off, and even to the point where we asked you in December about selling the certificates, and whether it was in increments for the first 10 and then the second 10. And you held fast to your notion of, you know what, give us a number. We really want to see a number. You know, and I think you should be commended for that as a school board, and holding to that line. And you know, whatever it is, I don't care. I'll say by God's grace that I want to commend Pitts too for the work that they put in on the front side. They gave you a number, and it came in under budget. You know, so they understand the process, and we'd be looking differently right now. We probably have, you know, furrowed brows on our face if he was sitting here tonight and he missed the mark by $2 million. You know, because I'm sure that's happened to him before too, but you know, it didn't happen. So I think you have to count your blessings, count our blessings, the fact that we're not in that position. So, you know, I had a patron of the community tell me, you know, this weekend, just in jest, talking about it, you know, essentially, if you're not growing, you're dying. You know, and you can take that, I suppose, probably more than one way, but it's been almost 23 years since the Parkson School District has added to the footprint. And while a lot of the communities and the surrounding school districts have taken steps, you know, to enhance and improve, not that this facility, there's anything wrong with it, because you have a great facility here, but I think it's prudent on your guys' part. You did it the right way, you put some thought in it, you had conversations, and you're taking the next step forward for the betterment of the community and your school community and the kids that have yet to dawn the door. So, appreciate that.
I'd have to say, to listen to some basketball games on the radio, there's some schools, there's about 4 or 5 names added together on a basketball squad.
Yep.
And they can't hardly get it out right, saying all the towns' names. And we've been very fortunate here that we've been, not that we would not look at consolidation with somebody else, don't get me wrong, but we've been very fortunate enrollment has stayed with us.
Yeah. There's something to be said to retaining your identity, right? And I've lived through the other experience as well. So, and there's good and bad, pros and cons, both ways.
So we don't need an official motion on the Davidson funding?
No, because you did that when you did the resolution to sell the 7.5, up to 7.575 or whatever it was at that time.
Thanks for hustling and getting us a low ball.
No, it's just sometimes it worked out. Like we were pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
Sounds like you did
Sure.
some work up front though. That
Well, we
probably helped.
try and drum up as much interest as we can, but it's been a weird few years. I mean, there's been so many projects over the last year or so that low and only bids. I mean, you know, and there was some of that here, so it doesn't surprise us at all. But sometimes we're thrilled that we get one bidder. We bid a project up at Dakota State in Madison. They were going to redo some dorms up there a year and a half ago. We had our bid all ready to turn in. It was like a $4 million project. We couldn't get any electricians or any plumbers to give us bids, so we couldn't turn our bid in. So we went out to the state and we were curious if anybody else, it's like nobody bid the project because they couldn't find guys to do the work. So to have 4 electricians, 2 plumbers, 3 HVAC guys, we're happy. 4
Three
dirt,
ma- yeah,
4
three
dirt guys,
masons,
3
4 dirt work,
masons,
yeah,
3
that's-
precast guys, 4 roofers. We got good action on the
Yeah.
project, so that doesn't always happen. And like I said, a lot of different reasons, the size of the project, time frame, Parksman's location. There was just a lot of things that we got lucky on.
And probably working with you, that's a big part of it.
Well, yeah, we get a pretty good following. The
Yeah.
guys like working for us, but I know, like if this is out in Bennett County, out in Martin, they wouldn't, you know what I mean? They wouldn't have got it. But I mean, that's just the fact of life. It's like certain school districts, when you get out in those areas, you just don't get the interest on it. Or we're doing a project for the Pier YMCA and similar results out there too. It's just like, you know, there's certain trades around there, but Pier's a long ways to go when the guys are coming out of Sioux Falls or Rapid when there's a bunch of work in both of those towns.
Thank you very much
Yeah,
for your
well, thank you
time.
guys, so if you got any questions, let me know.
Nope, perfect.
Need a
Need to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn, yep.
So moved.
You good, Matt?
I think he left you.
He's gone, huh?
I think after the vote.
Sorry, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, no, he's still there. Thank you,
Good.
Moved
sir.
by Neville, second by Schoenfeld to adjourn at 7:37. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Bye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Thank you, Matt. Have a safe trip.
Bye.